There's no rescue team, it's just me. I fired a few shots.
But by the way you look, I can see you have no experience in war.
Rambo steps into the ring, where the crowd forms a tight human wall in place of ropes, shouting over each other and tossing out bets. His opponent is already waiting, gliding from side to side and twirling his weapon like it's an extension of his hands. Big Man joins him in the center, matching his stance. They circle in silence, each watching for an opening while the noise around them builds. No strikes, yet. Just small feints and shifting weight, both trying to read the other. Then the first attack comes fast. The opponent leaps in with a swing, and their weapons meet with a crack that pulls a louder roar from the crowd. With each clash, it starts to feel like whoever breaks the other's bat first might be the one to lose. The exchange continues until the opponent lands a spinning back kick that pushes Rambo back slightly. And as the crowd reacts to the hit, more bat swings follow. He mistimes a kick and ends up on his back, showing signs of pain and frustration on his face. He soon takes control, landing hit after hit until his opponent can't respond. Rambo keeps going, giving him no room to recover, and eventually the match ends with the opponent surrendering. 3 officials, 1 in uniform, 2 in suits, step out of the U.S. Embassy in Thailand and immediately set out into the city with a printed photo in hand, stopping at different hotspots and showing it to passers-by, street vendors, and anyone who might recognize the man. At that moment, the man in the photo is elsewhere, receiving sackcloth gloves from 2 young monks. He doesn't know his face is being passed around town, and for now, his focus remains on the fight ahead. One of many he's taken part in behind alleyways where the monks support him and the crowd expects a show. Meanwhile, the officials pick up a lead and manage to find the fight's location. They enter the crowd and spot the champion just as he wins, but he collects his prize money and disappears before they can reach him. Alongside the monks, he travels by boat back to the monastery, handing them the money on the way. The officials already know where he's headed, so they continue on, and eventually find him there, working on the renovation of one of the monastery's buildings. When he sees Colonel Sam, he comes forward.
John Rambo!
Not out of excitement, but out of respect, and listens. Sam has brought Bob, who gives Rambo a photo of a sick child with an oxygen mask. The war in Afghanistan has escalated, and innocent lives are being affected. Colonel Sam has been offered the mission to intervene, and he wants Rambo to join him.
What's that got to do with me?
They've asked me to go in.
You're not gonna do it.
Yes, and I want you to come with me, John.
It means my war's over.
He immediately declines, walking away without further conversation, choosing to remain at the monastery where he's surrounded by people who support him, and where he prefers to stay rather than take on something he doesn't fully understand. Colonel Sam reminds Rambo of what he truly is and what he's capable of on the battlefield, but the former soldier brushes it off. He has no interest in being talked into a mission, simply because Sam sees him as some kind of field machine. The officer, who's never been one for many words, lets the man stick with his decision. The mission in Afghanistan falls apart on day 1. A Soviet jet strikes, wiping out most of the team. The few who survive, including Sam, are taken prisoner and held as spoils of war. Bob doesn't waste time in bringing the news back to Rambo, knowing there's a soft spot there. Despite his refusal, Rambo agrees. Bob is surprised, but doesn't ask why. He just reminds the fighter that this operation stays unofficial, which means that if he's caught, no one will claim him. He'll be on his own. Still, that isn't new to Rambo, who has handled sensitive missions under similar conditions. Without wasting a moment, he packs up and sets off for Afghanistan. The streets he lands in are dense, with armed men scattered through narrow alleys and open corners. He quickly tracks down his first contact, Musa, and identifies himself. But their first exchange doesn't go as expected. It's difficult to get even basic information out of him, as Rambo stays cold-faced and focused, asking only to proceed with his mission from within Musa's private armory. The other man is stunned when he finds out that Rambo is the cavalry, a single man sent to go up against the Soviets and rescue a captured American team. He can't believe it, but the soldier doesn't waste time trying to convince him. He simply assures him he's going to get it done. His quiet, no-nonsense approach to combat throws Musa off.
There's no rescue team, it's just me. I fired a few shots.
You need more men to help. But by the way you look, I can see you have no experience in war.
Musa urges him to reconsider, more doubt than advice. Rambo doesn't respond, but it clearly hits a nerve. Still, he moves ahead with the supplies, unaware that someone else is listening in. Mouse's assistant, whose quiet eavesdropping might mean more than just curiosity. Meanwhile, the man behind the operation, Colonel Zayson, pays Colonel Sam a visit. He's proud to be holding a U.S. officer on Afghan soil for the first time, even raising a glass to the occasion. With a casual tone, he offers an easier way out, share a few details, nothing dramatic. But Sam shuts him down, refusing to entertain the idea and instead calling out the absurdity of the war. The mood shifts, the smile fades. Zayson leans in, promising a kind of suffering the American has never known. While Sam remains imprisoned, with occasional check-ins from his captor, Musa leads Rambo across the Afghan border. Along the way, he shares stories of past empires that tried and failed to conquer the land. His pride in the Afghan spirit is clear. He believes it still gives them an edge, even against the Soviets. The journey continues with more history and lessons. They're now 2 hours from the target. Rambo listens in silence, his expression unchanged. Back at the prison, Zayson grows increasingly certain that Sam's presence signals something bigger.
You started this damn war, now you have to deal with it.
Now again, where are the missiles?
I don't know anything about any missiles.
Of course you do.
That U.S. missiles have been moved into the region. Pushing for confirmation, he ties the colonel's wrists to a rope above his head and hoists him off the ground, ready to beat the truth out of him. But Sam doesn't break. Instead, he mocks his captor, and the jab lands. Just not the way he expected. Zayson snaps, strikes him across the face, then presses a shotgun under his chin. Not long after, Mouse's assistant is seen speaking privately with the Soviet officer. The conversation is in a foreign language, but even without full understanding, Sam hears a name repeated. One he recognizes. The secret's out. The Soviets know someone from the outside, an American, is working with the rebels to bring him home. Musa's next stop takes him and the foreign fighter to a rebel village. Adults and children alike are drawn to the newcomer, escorting him to a makeshift hospital where the wounded lie in poor conditions, clinging to what little care they can get. During a strategy session led by Yuri, a Russian defector now allied with the locals, questions are raised about timing. The village elders plead for a pause in all infiltration efforts until help arrives, fearing any sudden move could bring disaster. When the visitor assures them he has no plans to drag them into a bloodbath, they see it as a death wish. Masood speaks up, recounting how 6,000 villagers were once slaughtered in a single raid. That kind of horror doesn't leave the mind easily. With their families torn apart and homes burned down, they've learned to treat every risk as a threat to survival. While the group debates the next move, the man walks a short stretch of the village, answering light questions from a boy who proudly calls himself a soldier. Nearby, the villagers-turned-fighters begin a playful game that catches his attention. When one of them gestures for him to join, he agrees, quickly picking up the rules from his guide before mounting a horse to try the sport, which plays much like football. Men race across the field, each trying to hold onto a sheep long enough to toss it into a circle. While the foreigner draws attention with his moves, a missile tears through the sky. He and another player share control of the sheep until he's knocked off the horse. But he gets back up and charges again, only for the explosion to end the game as the crowd scatters for cover. It's the first of many. Zayson, leading the assault himself, continues launching missiles, striking at random and tearing through camp-style homes with roofs no stronger than trampolines. Blood spills, and the attackers don't care who gets hit. Even children and women fall. Gunfire from the ground is useless. Their shots barely graze the jet. Still, the fighter sprints across the open field toward the mounted machine gun. He reaches it, but not before several villagers are cut down, including Yuri, who dies while firing shots. Rambo grabs the machine gun, turns it skyward, and fires directly at the support jet. The rounds hit their mark. Heat builds in the fuselage until the aircraft explodes mid-air. A small victory in the midst of chaos. Zayson hovers in the smoke for a moment, then retreats, banking his jet away from the village. A strange calm settles over the ruins. The ground is scattered with bodies, and those who survived look around in silent disbelief, quietly grateful just to be alive. Rambo watches with clenched fists under his chin, dismayed by what he sees as cowardice from the Soviet. But beneath his stillness, fury simmers. He's not sure what the next move should be, but he feels it needs to come soon. Masood approaches and gently reminds him of what he said earlier. This war isn't as straightforward as it looks. Maybe leaving now and regrouping would be the smarter choice. But Rambo seems set. Whatever this has turned into, it belongs to him now, and he's not done. Masood leads the others to safety. Moussa stays behind, offering to guide him through the mountains.
They kill all my family. I want to fight.
But Rambo refuses. He tells the boy calmly but firmly to go back. This fight isn't for him. Moussa, still trying to understand, asks why anyone would go through all this just to rescue one man from a heavily armed Soviet force. Rambo doesn't hesitate. If the roles were reversed, he says, would do the same. That night, they begin the infiltration. Moving low across open ground, they scan carefully for landmines buried just beneath the surface. At one point, Rambo locates one and clears it with his knife before they continue on. The perimeter is more than just mined. Nearly invisible tripwire bombs stretch across the path. Moussa accidentally brushes one, but Rambo reacts instantly, catching the pin before it can release. It's a narrow escape. Then, suddenly, Hamid reappears. His presence draws immediate frustration. There's a brief exchange. Quiet words, a warning, maybe a bit of scolding, but the boy refuses to leave. He's already here, and he's not turning back. At the outer fence, Rambo cuts through a loose strand of barbed wire, letting himself and Moussa in. He turns to Hamid again, telling him to stay put or return. The boy pleads, saying he knows the terrain better than anyone. The warning remains. If anything happens to him, it won't be forgiven. They reach a second, sturdier fence and cut through. Inside, searchlights sweep rhythmically across the compound. Every step has to be timed, every movement precise. While the infiltration unfolds in silence, the prisoners inside continue to suffer. Zaisen's men push harder, determined to break them. One captive is strapped to an electric chair, enduring wave after wave of shocks without giving up a word. Outside, the infiltrators work quickly. They rig time bombs at key points, part of a quiet plan to disrupt the compound. A guard on tower duty spots movement and fires a flare, flooding the field with light. For a tense moment, it seems they've been caught, but they slip past just in time. The flare, though, puts the entire camp on alert. Search dogs are released, and soldiers begin patrolling with renewed aggression. Inside, the screams don't stop. More prisoners are dragged into the torture rooms, children and women among them. While armored vehicles roll in. Crawling beneath one, Rambo inches forward over the stony ground, using its movement as cover. Once inside the main building, he sees the full horror with his own eyes. Meanwhile, Hamid, despite being told to stay back, slips into the compound too, heading for the building as Moussa continues planting charges around the perimeter. The boy claims he has nothing left to lose. The Soviets took his family. With most of Zaisen's men away from the prison area, the moment is right. The first guard who appears is taken down without a sound. In one of the nearby cells, two women quietly direct the rescuer toward the room that matters most. There, at last, is the colonel. Surprised, but not speechless. Just as the lock is about to break, movement draws their attention. It's Hamid again. That instant of hesitation lets a soldier enter. A knife flashes through the air, striking him in the neck, but not before his finger finds the trigger. His shots spray wildly as he falls, the noise echoing through the compound. More soldiers storm in, and the firefight begins. The colonel urges retreat. Staying would be suicide. As they pull back, gunfire chases them, but Rambo pushes forward, dropping enemies in pairs. Even with Hamid under his protection, he doesn't slow, firing when needed, moving fast and focused. The charges start detonating, one after another, cutting down enemies caught in the blasts. Rambo, knowing the layout, avoids the blast zones while the Soviets scramble in confusion. He meets every attack head-on. When bullets fly, he answers, but now the fight escalates. A grenade launcher fires at him. He dives aside just in time, but a jagged piece of wood slams into him. Gritting his teeth, he breaks it off before it can do more damage. Outside, the chain of detonations continues, tearing through clusters of soldiers still trying to regroup. Some scatter, while others unwittingly run into active danger zones. Shaking off the pain, he returns fire on the advancing troops. Hamid's been hit in the leg and can't walk. So Rambo hoists him over one shoulder, keeps his weapon steady in the other, and pushes forward. Eventually, he spots Moussa near the underground escape route. Just as they're about to slip away, aerial fire rains down. Moussa fires back, taking out one of the soldiers before diving into the tunnel. The boy goes down first, and Rambo holds off a few more attackers before disappearing into the passage behind them. Inside the narrow tunnel, Zaisen is already making new plans. Refusing to let them escape, he sends men into the water-filled corridor unaware of what waits ahead. The firefight continues in the confined space until Rambo comes up with a better plan. While Mousa supports Hamid, he plants a timed charge above the narrow path, just as enemy footsteps start echoing closer. A few soldiers are down before the blast even triggers. When it finally goes off, it collapses part of the tunnel, sealing it off and buying them time. The only thing standing between them and freedom is a barred steel window. Rambo shoots at the frame until it starts to give, then tears it loose with brute force. On the other side, they find horses waiting, brought by Musa's allies. But the escape hasn't gone unnoticed. From a watchtower, Soviet troops open fire, striking one of the horsemen. Without hesitating, Rambo grabs an RPG and fires toward the gate. The rocket hits just below the tower, leveling a military truck and taking out the shooters with it. Back in the prison, Zayzin storms into the colonel's cell with another officer, furious at the rescue attempt. After a few angry blows, he demands to know who would launch such a reckless assault for a single man. But the colonel doesn't flinch. He answers calmly.
Oh, God would have mercy. He won't.
The group finds shelter in a cave, just beyond Zaysin's search range. Hamid receives basic first aid. The wound is under control for now, but Rambo's already made his decision. He's going back to finish what was started. Musa tries to dissuade him, insisting no one should fight this kind of battle alone and that some wars are best left unfinished. But turning back was never an option. Rambo tells them it's settled. Even Hamid, still injured, offers to go with him, but the idea is quickly shut down as the boy is handed over to Mousa for safe return. Before they part, there's a quiet moment. The boy, clearly attached, says he hopes they'll meet again. Rambo nods and, as a final gesture, gives him the neck piece he once asked about, a promise of sorts. Once they're gone, he turns to the last thing left undone, the wound. That jagged piece of wood is still lodged in his side. He reaches around, pushes it all the way through with a grunt, then pours gunpowder directly into the wound. With no hesitation, he lights it. Smoke hisses out of both sides like a barbecue gone wrong. He doubles over, gripping the ground, and rides out the pain in silence. It's morning. Zaysin's men sweep the nearby caves, while he surveys the area from above in a jet. But nothing turns up. Meanwhile, the man they're after has already reached the base of the mountain and begun climbing. Injured, but undeterred, he reaches the top, silently takes out the machine gunner, and slips back into the building through a narrow opening. Inside, Colonel Sam is strung up by the wrists, facing Zaysin's torturer, a man who seems to take pleasure in the work. He sparks a flamethrower just inches from Sam's face, drawing out the fear. Above, Rambo crawls through a vent and drops into the torture room, killing the torturer in one swift motion. Musa's associate, the traitor, bolts at the sight. With no time to waste, Rambo and Sam take out the remaining guards. When the search teams return, they find the prison doors open and freed hostages already moving through the halls. Outside, Zaysin lands by helicopter and heads toward the building with his men. The escapees wait nearby, then make their move. The pilot is knocked out with a single blow, and the group quickly boards the helicopter. Sam asks if their man can fly it. The answer isn't comforting, but there's no time to hesitate. One of the hostages takes the co-pilot seat, and they lift off, just as Zaysin discovers the empty cell and rushes outside to see his own aircraft flying away. The compound erupts in gunfire. One of the prisoners is hit and falls from the cabin, managing to cling to the landing skids. Under fire from both sides, he loses his grip and drops. The helicopter fires back, taking out enemy vehicles and buying enough time to escape the compound, but they're not out yet. The engine's failing. They lose altitude quickly, but manage to land roughly on flat ground. The moment they touch down, the helicopter bursts into flames, but everyone escapes just in time. Rambo tries to lead the group out, but the freed prisoners choose to stay behind and find their own way. They know the terrain well enough to escape on their own. With that, they split up. Rambo and Colonel Sam head in one direction. Zaysin, furious, deploys more jets to sweep the area, leading the charge himself. He's past restraint now and willing to use anything to erase the humiliation. Sam expresses concern about Rambo's wound, but the soldier brushes it off with a grin. He was trained by the best. After a short rest, Sam spots a narrow opening leading into a cave and lowers a rope. As he descends, Rambo sets up his bow, attaches a bullet to the arrowhead, and fires at one of the jets. And the explosion lights up the sky. Without waiting for retaliation, he drops into the hole. Zaysin sees the movement and responds by ordering a general-purpose bomb dropped on the area. It misses the opening, but the blast tears through the rock, heat chasing down the tunnel. Rambo dives behind cover just in time. Soon, reinforcements descend from the jets. Zaysin's troops, now on the ground. Sam suggests splitting up. Before parting, he apologizes for dragging Rambo into this, but the response is cold. No room left for sentiment. Inside the cave, enemy soldiers move in, led by Kurov, known for his brutality. Rambo takes out the first man with a clean shot from the bow, then picks up the radio and speaks directly to Zayson, calmly warning him of what's coming. Hearing his voice over the comm stuns Zayson. He freezes for a moment. Rambo moves like a shadow, dispatching targets with knife or bare hands. Sam plays his part, staying low, moving carefully, but his partner is pure motion. Every time they think they've found him, he's already gone. Kurov starts tracking his pattern and nearly catches him in a burst of gunfire. But Rambo is ready. An explosive arrow flies and hits its mark. Kurov grabs a nearby soldier to shield himself, but the blast still sends him flying. Before Rambo can recover, another soldier leaps from the side and raises his rifle. Just as he pulls the trigger, Sam fires first and drops him. Thinking the cave might finally be clear, Rambo goes back to check. That caution pays off. A hidden squad opens fire. He ducks, waits out their volley, then fires a bomb-tipped arrow with precision. The explosion clears the last of them. When he emerges, Sam is waving from a distance, but the moment is short-lived. Kwokov appears again, part of his face burned from the earlier blast. The two men charge at each other and engage in a brutal fight. Kwokov lifts him off the ground and slams him over his shoulder, though he eventually gets the upper hand and forces the Soviet brute to his knees. Reaching for a nearby rope, Rambo loops it around his opponent's neck and pulls with all his strength. The struggle is intense, but Kwokov fights back fiercely and manages to shift control again. He picks up Rambo and begins constricting him around the waist region, causing more damage to Rambo's initial stomach wound. He mutters strengths and reaches for a bomb on Kwokov's uniform. Then he takes out the pin, and this puts Kwokov off, who is given a spinning back kick that sends him into the hole. The rope around his neck yanks tight midair, and since the other end is knotted to a massive stone, gravity does the rest. As they make their way from the battle, they meet a much bigger troop with plenty of tanks and soldiers. Zayson uses a public address system to warn them against further attacks. He asks them to drop their weapons and assures them of a fair trial, but the colonel doesn't believe a word of it. He waits for a cue, holding back until the other man makes the call. Rambo calls his bluff and opens fire, blasting one of the trucks. Both men then run for cover inside a narrow hole that barely shields them from the bullets flying overhead. The exchange continues, and Big Man takes out more trucks using his underbarrel grenade launcher. Suddenly, the direction of fire shifts. Masoud's men are approaching. They charge in on horseback, shooting as they advance and forcing Zayson's troops to regroup. From the air, he responds with gunfire from his jet, targeting the rebels and taking down a few of them. Meanwhile, the fighter gets shot and nearly loses his life, but still manages to seize an armored tank from Zayson's men. The fight narrows down into a head-to-head between him and his nemesis. Both fire at each other, though neither lands a fatal shot. Rambo doesn't hesitate. He speeds forward with the tank on full throttle, while Colonel Sam helps by shooting down the man with the machine gun on the bad guy's plane. That move gives them a clear shot. Rambo fires, striking both Zayson and his assistant, but now the jet, no longer controlled, is headed straight for the tank. Sam screams for him to jump, knowing what's coming, yet there's barely any time left. The two machines collide in a blast. After the explosion, Rambo wakes up inside the tank. He's been unconscious for just a few minutes. The colonel is saved, and Masoud and his men have been liberated from Zayson's chokehold. The Allies set out to return when Musa suggests that Rambo stays behind. His strength and skills could be needed for other battles, as the war is far from finished. Even Hamid wants him to stay back, but he insists on leaving. He's done his part, so they wish each other well, and the Americans zoom off.